Good morning, everybody, and a happy Saturday morning to you. The title says it all. Here we go again, because we have a lot of royal family stuff. We have a lot of Harry Meghan stuff, and an older story, for some reason, has reared its ugly head. So you know I have to cover it, so let's just jump in and get busy, shall we? Let's go. We're going to start off. They're talking about Princess Diana's tiara, which does not belong to the royals. It belongs to the Spencer family. So people are saying that more than likely the next person to wear this tiara is going to be Princess Charlotte, because she's a key figure within the royal family. And she embodies her grandmother's legacy in a very public way, which means if she ever decides to wear the Spencer tiara, it would be a fitting and symbolic choice for a future occasion, possibly a wedding. However, while Meghan's daughter shares the same lineage, her ties to the royals are so distant, and more than likely, even though Charles Spencer acknowledges her, he's not going to hand over the Spencer tiara. Okay, moving on. We have next the 80th anniversary of VJ Day. Remember, this happens on the 15th. It marks the anniversary of Japan's surrender to Allied forces after Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The king is going to commemorate the anniversary with an address to the nation. Other royals are going to be going to different events throughout the week. There's all different stuff going on. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is going to be at the National Memorial Arboretum, all kinds of things. However, Princess and Prince of Wales will not be there as far as we can tell, because they are not in the announcement. Charles and Camilla will be at the National Memorial Arboretum event. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh will attend a service at the Scottish National War Memorial at Edinburgh Castle. Everybody's going to be out and about. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester will be at the Far East Prisoners of War celebration in Norwich Cathedral, but no mention of William and Catherine. It'd be interesting to see if they show, but obviously there's something happening. All right, let's keep going. All right, next up, we have this fabulous picture taken at the Duchy of Cornwall. Prince William, as the Duke of Cornwall, met with members of the Prince's Council. All right, next up, some articles are coming out now saying that even though there's a lot of talk that Charles or William will pull Prince Andrew and Prince Harry's Duke titles due to their respective bad behaviors, and they're pretty low on the totem pole as far as public opinion, they're saying that there's no way William would do that, as it brings even more attention to the issues with both of them. Instead, Andrew will be relegated to Royal Siberia even more than he is now, because he will not be invited to any family gatherings. And as of now, Andrew is still being invited to Sandringham for Christmas and walks with the family to church. But they're saying that after Charles is gone, William is going to be in charge, and he will not be inviting Andrew to anything. And while Charles may want to see Harry and his grandchildren maybe one last time before he dies, they're saying William is absolutely done with his brother. He's washed his hands of him, no private audiences, and it's over. And William has it right, because the first rule of the monarchy, these reports are saying, is not glitter, ceremony, or influence, it's survival. At the height of the Great War, with the thrones tottering on all sides, King George V, who was the first constitutional monarch, moved decisively to secure his own. And they're saying that the crown must always win. You have to set private sentiments aside, and you have to keep your eye on the prize. The articles say that Harry and Meghan threw away the greatest platform for public service that there ever was, and they cannot return to that role or to the UK. And so as his forebears grasped before, Charles must let the king rule him, not his personal feelings. Get it? All right, let's move on. All right, let's move on to our Harry Meghan stuff. Now, there have been no pictures of Harry. Nobody knows where Harry is. And so everybody's talking about the fact that Duchess Meghan applauds Prince Harry for beautiful 24 hours, because if there is something going on and he's not around, she can't let the general public know that. You guys know that. Oh my goodness. All right, let's go on. All right, here we go. This is really interesting. Remember, Meghan was only in the family from May of 2018 to March of 2020, 22 months. That was her entire time in the royal family. And in that time, there were more than a dozen examples of her breaking the rules, once about every 2 months. So the first one was during her official engagement photograph. She wore a completely sheer-topped gown, which is a no-no for daytime attire. But they're saying this was Meghan declaring that even when she barely had her foot in the palace door, that she would be treating royal protocol as guidance only. And, people's eyebrows really went up when the price of the gown came out at £56,000. Catherine's dress, however, just in contrast, cost £385. I like this dress better anyway. The vast majority of Meghan's protocol breaches involved clothing and the rules about what royals are supposed to wear, bearing in mind the nature of the event and the time of day. And as an actress for more than 2 decades before she married Harry, she would have been well aware of the power of clothing. So, of course, Meghan goes to Wimbledon with Catherine, and she would have expected to keep the royal box rules, wearing skirts or dresses, but of course, she decides to wear these long pants that were dragging on the ground and looked absolutely ill-fitting and horrible as far as I'm concerned. How about when she went to the 2018 British Fashion Awards and gave a speech about what an honor it was to be there celebrating British fashion and British designers in my new home while wearing a gown by French label Givenchy. So she didn't even wear a British designer to the British Fashion Awards, and she spent the whole time grasping her belly trying to take attention from the actual winner of the award. You would have thought she was carrying Jesus in her room the way she was behaving. And right after the event, Meghan's photo on the British Fashion Council Instagram account was deleted. I'm sure that did not sit well with her. And 1 year later, even after all the nasty headlines about the Givenchy faux pas, she chose French fashion label Dior for the family photograph for Archie's christening, where traditionally the royal mother wears a piece by a British fashion designer. She knows this. Catherine, by the way, was wearing Britain's Alexander McQueen for all 3 of her children's christenings and was wearing an outfit by British designer Stella McCartney at Archie's christening. I think you guys get it. When you become a royal, your individual brand and personality must come second to the reputation of the firm and the tradition that it represents. And anyone who marries into the royal family believing they can have all the benefits and not pay the bill just hasn't understood the contract with the crown. I completely agree. All right, let's move on. This is actually very interesting. This shows you that Meghan is paying attention to what's in social media. A royal reporter has recently revived claims that Meghan Markle was labeled Duchess Difficult because of the alleged bullying that took place. And now we know that Meghan was very upset by the nickname, and former staff remain traumatized, saying that Meghan has an infinite capacity for revenge. Now, of course, the Sussexes are denying the allegations, and their spokesman condemned the claims as false, offensive, part of a smear campaign, and Meghan remains focused on her family and work. Now, she's saying I'm not Duchess Difficult, and yet she's had issues keeping staff on both sides of the pond. She apparently has demanding behavior. She was waking people up at 5 a.m. when she was in the UK. We know that Valentine Lowe came out with the bullying allegations in 2021. And then, of course, there was the Oprah show where she says this isn't, true. According to Lowe, there wasn't just 1 or 2 stories. There was like a ton of them. And that's why they were calling her Duchess Difficult. And for those who want the bullying report released, let me just say the reason that they didn't release it, in my opinion, is to protect the palace, because I think the report showed that the palace did not protect their staff like they should have, and it would have reflected badly on them. So with this, some woman named, I don't know how to pronounce it, Brianni Gordon, comes out and writes an article saying, the first time I met Meghan, she gave me a big bear hug, the kind that makes you feel at ease, particularly when you're being presented to assorted royals in front of a bank of baying photographers. And it was at the 2018 Royal Foundation event, blah, blah, blah. Meghan had a down-to-earth demeanor, blah, blah, blah. And I've gotten to know Meghan in the years since that first hug. We've gone to lunch, hung out at charity projects, and I visited her at her home in Frogmore Cottage and Montecito. And each time we meet or exchange texts about life, I wonder what it says about the world that she could be so vilified and trolled while other members of the royal family seem to have been given a free pass. Then she goes on to talk about Andrew. Let me just say, this woman was given in her first year $1 million for clothing. She was given this huge royal wedding. She was offered several people to help her, but she refused them all. And she just ran around going, I'm going to be your boss someday. She doesn't discuss all the times that Meghan and Harry have been caught in out and out lies. She doesn't discuss the fact that even though they wanted to get away from the royal family, they continue to milk the royal family for everything there is worth. And she finishes the article by saying, "This brings me back to Meghan and the reports this week that her warm, friendly, hug everyone approach made members of the royal household uncomfortable. What fools the royals were for throwing away the marvelous opportunity they had with Meghan, all while continuing to cover up for atrocious Andrew." This woman is choosing to forget the narrative that Harry and Meghan put out that they barely escaped with their lives and their sanity intact. They didn't want to be there. They left. Nobody made them go. And it doesn't surprise me at all that this article came out. I'm sure Meghan asked her friend to write it because in pointing out the differences between her and Andrew, she's so much better. Get it? So if Meghan's so freaking nice, then how come before she met Prince Harry, before she had any connection to him or the royals, she was called one of the meanest persons ever? She had a reputation. And of course, when this was brought up to Meghan, it was said that one of the employees had to leave due to gross misconduct. It wasn't Meghan. Have you ever noticed that? Every time this stuff comes up, it's never her. All right, next up, I told you that Samantha Markle's appeal is coming through in September in Florida, and it's being reported by some royal reporters that, quote, this could be misconstrued as a timely action by Samantha Markle as she sees her half-sister on the ropes regarding Netflix and a glimmer of hope to be reconnected with the royal family. In other words, there's nothing good about this for Meghan because her reputation is already tarnished, and now it's going to be further tarnished by the allegations from her sister. It doesn't matter whether they're true or not. It just doesn't reflect well. And they're saying that this could affect Harry trying to reconcile with his family. I'm going to keep an eye on this story. Now, the next story, which is our big one for today, for some reason, 7 years on from Meghan Markle's exit from the event in Fiji, the whole thing is coming back up again. And why is this coming up again? Meghan Markle was going to a Fiji market as part of Women's Empowerment Day. This was her one and only event on her own. So this happened in 2018? But for some reason, it's coming up again now and everybody's talking about it. And they're saying that what happened actually was that Meghan was upset because of who was there in the market. So there was an interview the other day. I want you guys to hear this. And I want you to know that I've edited out the small chit chat. You know what I mean? So that it's not too long. Okay, listen to this.
Fiji, Simon.
Fiji with Meghan. Well, that was really the only big tour it is the only big tour they did before Archie was born. So this was a few months after their wedding in 2018. Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Tonga. It was an epic trip, but in hindsight, we now everything makes sense. The sort of hostility towards the British media and how he was treating us. So there was one day in this epic tour that was specifically Meghan's day for women's education, empowerment, entrepreneurs, and I was at the engagement in the market in Suva, which was hot, but it wasn't chaos, and there was a clear route for Meghan to take there to meet all of these female businesses that she wanted to meet. And it was supposed to last half an hour, 40 minutes, and it lasted about 15, if that, because at some point as she was meeting people, the whole atmosphere changed in the royal party. It came from Meghan, I believe, and everything went into warp drive. And my cameraman, Rui, was the official British TV cameraman, the pool cameraman for that event. We got footage of the press officers sort of pushing him back. You've got to get back, you've got to get back. Everything went into fast forward. Meghan gets into a car. She walks past all these people who've lined up, all these women who've lined up for hours to tell her about their business. Don't get to meet her. The woman with the gift at the end, just she zooms past. It was really weird. And afterwards, the press officers and the staff were spinning it as a security issue. Well, it wasn't. If there had been any sort of security issue, the Scots wouldn't have allowed the event to start. Health issue, I'm not sure. One of the stories is that Meghan was unhappy that there was a charity there that she used to be involved with, but wasn't involved with anymore, and that just annoyed her. It was a really weird engagement. There wasn't an engagement, really, and the people who had been prepared for weeks to meet the newest member of the royal family just saw her zoom by. Well, I mean, it was an incredible story, although we didn't know why. I mean, I think we know why now. I think it probably was to do with that charity. I've really felt sorry for the people who wanted to meet her. And at that point, Meghan was the new superstar of the British royal family. And all they saw was that, For us, it was a story. For the palace staff, it was a nightmare. I mean, they were very upset. They didn't know what had just happened, and were trying to spin 5 different versions of what we had all just seen. And it sort of torpedoed her own day in the diary. That was specifically was the Women's Education Empowerment Day. So, with hindsight, was that, does everything now make sense? And was that, Meghan's, behaviour on that day, was that, a true reflection? It didn't look good. It was not what a royal visit's all about. And, you don't see, I never saw the Queen do that.
I also feel really bad for these women that were lined up. They had lined up for hours. And if you go back and you look at the footage, it's actually terrible. You see these women in the blue trying to talk to her, and she's completely disinterested. She doesn't care what they're saying. And she's just getting to the car. She stops just long enough to get a gift. Yes, thank you. Thank you. The woman's trying to talk to her to tell her all about it. Meghan's not interested. She hands the gift off, shakes the woman's hand, and walks off. So what happened? Well, here's the crux of the story. And don't forget, this is where they had somebody to replace Samantha the Panther Cohen, and the woman quit. So the people at the market were waiting for Meghan. They had been preparing for 3 weeks, and Meghan was supposed to be there for 30 minutes. The royal family times everything. So she gets there and she realizes that UN Women are there. And the reason UN Women was there was they were running the project Markets for Change, which is what Meghan was there to go see. The idea is to improve the lives of these women that work in these markets. So Valentine Lowe reported that she apparently said she would only go to this market if there was no UN branding there, and the aides assured her that there wasn't, and then when she arrived, there they were. So why was she so upset about UN Women? Well, she had given a speech in New York in 2015 as a UN women's advocate, but she didn't want to be a UN women's advocate. She wanted to move up the food chain. She was upset, however, because she wanted to be like Emma Thompson. She wanted to be like Angelina Jolie. She wanted to be a UN Women's Ambassador. And as nobody knew who she was and really didn't care, UN Women said no. So that's why she snubbed them, because they wouldn't make her an ambassador. Now, a couple of other things. She said she got a standing ovation that night, which, as you can clearly see, is a lie. She also plagiarized her final words. Listen to this.
Because it isn't enough to simply talk about equality. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to simply believe in it. One must work at it. Let us work at it together, starting now. Thank you so much.
So that is what happened in the market. She is the kind of person that likes to get back at people, vengeance. So these people wouldn't let me be a UN women advocate? Forget you guys. I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to speak to these women. I want nothing to do with this visit. And she promptly turned and walked out. And if anything, I think that really speaks to her character. She couldn't just put it aside. No, now I'm big, so I'm not going to do anything for you. So she was snubbed by UN Women, and it's being said that Meghan doesn't cope well when she gets rejected. She's very nice and smiley as can be until you step in her way or don't give her what she wants, and then she'll come after you. Remember, previous staff viewed her capacity for revenge as infinite. I mean, she was seen turning and hissing at a member of her entourage. She was very mad. She demanded to leave. And that same woman was later seen in a car crying. It was reported she was disengaged the whole time she was there. She stopped to speak to a pineapple seller and had a very blank and disengaged look on her face. Listen, Jessica Mulroney was there on the tour. She was hanging out back at the hotel. I'm sure that Meghan would rather go back and hang out with her than walk around in the heat with these women that she deemed poor and below her status. I'm pretty sure that is what happened. I'm glad it's being brought up again. Oh my God, you know I want your comments. Put them down, make them good. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale, and a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.